On Monday, there's going to be a speech from the throne in the legislature, but why has Kathleen Wynne done the reset, the prorogation? Well, let me give you one clue. When you lose when you lose a by-election in Scarborough Rouge River, and the Liberals didn't expect that. I mean, look, by-elections, governments lose because of referendums on city governments, but Patrick Brown was vulnerable there. They lost. And then all of a sudden, Kathleen Wynne realized people don't really like this government. We got to reset. Here's what Yasser Naqvi said to explain why she's done it.
A prorogation as a tool has been used by all governments. This is Premier Wynne's first prorogation in her time in office. Our purpose is to highlight to Ontarians exactly what our legislative agenda and priorities are going to be for the next 20 months.
And guess what those are going to be? Kathleen Wynne admitted today, we better deal with the fact that people are right angry about the high cost of energy. What's behind this? Lisa MacLeod is the PC M.P.P for M.P.P and Carleton. Lisa MacLeod joins us now. Hi, Lisa.
Hey, Aaron.
What did you make of Kathleen Wynne announcing a fancy word prorogation / reset for the legislature?
Peak of desperation. It is an attempt to hit the reset button. You're absolutely right. After the humiliating defeat last week in Scarborough Rouge River, a seat that, let's be very honest, the Progressive Conservatives have never won. Even when Mike Harris was winning massive majorities, we did not hold that seat. So that was a clear message to Kathleen Wynne that Ontarians are tired of her and her government. And this is a surprise. It's a surprise not only to those of us who sit in the Assembly, but I believe it's also a surprise to the clerk staff at Queen's Park, who were taken aback that this prorogation occurred today and was announced.
What's the purpose of a reset?
Speeches.
Yeah, so the throne speech is Monday. This is pretty quick. What's the purpose of a reset like this, Lisa MacLeod?
Well, I think when you're looking around the province today, there is a lot of anger. The government seems to be out of touch from the everyday needs of Ontarians. Hydro prices are skyrocketing. We're losing jobs left, right, and centre. And, you had me on last week where, Hector McMillan, a mayor in Eastern Ontario, Trent Hills, can't get the health care that he needs despite paying a health tax. So the government's out of touch, and they were called out on it in a by-election in Toronto, of all places. And they know now that Ontario voters mean business. And I think they're going to try and reset and talk about what their so-called achievements. I think they're going to start talking about hydro, and they're going to try and change people's mind. And I don't think it's going to work. I think the damage has set in. I think the government has been so far removed from the reality of everyday Ontarians that you're going to see more by-election losses in the months ahead.
Now, and you and I both know, by the way, this is a big loss for sure. But her poll numbers are so low, you couldn't, this is lower than low tide. I get it. By-elections are often, ways to punish the government in a safe way. But Scarborough Rouge River is a surprise. But what did you think of the sort of come to hydro moment that Kathleen Wynne had today? Let me play the clip, Lisa MacLeod, where she finally admitted that just maybe, the price of energy is hurting people in a big way.
We haven't done enough, that there's more that we have to do, and the mandate of the Minister of Energy includes looking for ways to help people to bear the costs in their day-to-day lives.
Well, there it is. Suddenly, energy's at the top of her agenda. What do you expect to hear from her on that, Lisa?
Well, I mean, it's great that she finally admitted after 13 years that the policies of her government have been catastrophic to not only the people of Ontario who pay their hydro bill at home, but also for the business climate here in the province of Ontario. We're uncompetitive as a result of that, and it's not getting any easier. So I think, it's a bit disingenuous for Kathleen Wynne now to say, okay, that's a bit over the top, when it was her and her government, and let's be clear, she was the campaign chair in 2011, when she signed off on 2 canceled gas plants that cost Ontarians over $1 billion, and that's gone onto their hydro bill. She was a member of the Ontario Liberal government when Dalton McGuinty was signing wind and solar contracts at unsustainable prices, and that we're stuck with for eternity. She is now the premier of a province that is wasting over $1 billion a year by either subsidizing power at a cost that is a loss to us, and spilling water for hydroelectricity over Niagara Falls. So her energy policies from her government have been catastrophic for the province, and so she has to take responsibility for that.
Speaking with Lisa MacLeod. Lisa MacLeod, what can she do? She said the energy minister, Glenn Thibeault, is going to do something about it. Here's the question. What?
Well, what can she do? Unless she is prepared to back away from some of these expensive, ideologically driven wind and solar green energy projects that are unsustainable and unaffordable, I'm not sure what else she can do other than possibly take money that is intended either for core public services or to service the debt and the deficit and actually subsidize now our power bills. So I'll be interested to see what she has to say. I'm a former energy critic myself. I spent a great deal of time working on that file and in that sector. And I got to tell you, any politician that's going to come out today and tell you that they're going to lower energy rates overnight by not taking drastic means and making several changes to their existing policies, not going to be able to do it.
But here's the problem, and one of the issues that some conservatives tell me is one of the issues that's going to make things expensive, and we know it will, is the cap and trade on carbon. But your leader, Patrick Brown, is also in agreement to put a price on carbon. So the question is, how do you have it both ways? You get rid of the price on carbon, but Pat Brown says you got to have a price on carbon. So are the conservatives, the PCs and the Liberals actually saying the same thing on that?
No, I think there's two very different approaches. We've talked about revenue neutrality, and some people say, well, if it's a tax, it can't be revenue neutral. Well, yes, it can, and I'll tell you how. When the HST was brought in Ontario, it could have been revenue neutral, meaning some prices would go up, but at the same time, it would be offset by some prices that will go down as a result of taxation. The government here in Ontario chose not to do that. They went for a $3.5 billion tax grab rather than saying, they wouldn't accept more money. So that's where the Liberals go. They want more money to spend for their projects. And that's where they're at. What Patrick Brown is saying, and he's right, the government's approach is disastrous. You look at the auctions now that Quebec and California are part of. Just a couple of weeks ago, the Ottawa Citizen did a story on how that is not working. So I think that's important. I think the second thing is when you look at this government.
Can I just say one thing, Lisa MacLeod? I know I love you and I just can go back and forth on this. And I've said this to Patrick Brown. This is the revenue neutral price on carbon. And I remember interviewing Stéphane Dion when he was the leader of the Liberal Party in 2008, and he introduced in June of that year the green shift. And what did he say? Hey, we're going to have new taxes for sure, a price on carbon, then it was going to be $40 a ton by the fourth year, and they're going to generate $15 billion annually, but don't worry, we're going to make sure that income tax and other things are going to be lowered, so it's going to be revenue neutral. And what did conservatives say? Pal, a tax is a tax is a tax, don't give me that. Now Patrick Brown is saying literally the same thing Stéphane Dion said in 2008.
Well, I think it's probably, and it likely is because the government has decided that they are going down that road. And if they're already going to implement it, I think the responsible thing for us to do is to make sure that if it's implemented, that it's fair for people. And I don't think under the Liberals you're going to see it as fairness. You also have to remember this is going to be brought up at our policy conference as Progressive Conservatives, so it isn't our policy as a party yet, though our leader has taken a stand on it. But I think let's get back to the Liberals for a moment, because the issue, the key issue with the Liberal government is they're now promising that they're going to make hydro in Ontario or electricity more affordable, yet they haven't explained how they're going to do it by implementing this job-killing gas tax that's going to be effectively a tax on everything, and which has been proven to be unworkable in Quebec and in California. And they're not looking at all at ripping up any of those expensive contracts that have mired us in energy poverty in the province of Ontario. So I think we have to continue to focus on what the Liberals are saying and what the Liberals are doing, and they have to be held responsible for this. And they have to understand that people across Ontario today and tomorrow and throughout the next 20 months are going to be struggling to pay their hydro bills and their gasoline and all of these other things because of disastrous policies over the past 13 years.
10 seconds, Lisa MacLeod. What happens on Monday then? What will your response be to this prorogation and speech from the throne?
Well, we're still finding out details. The speech from the throne, I still haven't been told at what time this is taking place. Obviously, we won't be having a question period after being in our communities for the past 3.5 months, so that's frustrating. Many of us were ready to go with questions and to hold this Liberal government to account. So we'll see what's actually going to be in it. I suspect much of it will be leaked. But at the end of the day, I think, this is a tool for the government to hit the reset button. And I think that they're going to try and do that, and Wynn's going to try and have better approval ratings than the 16% she has now, and they're going to try and win those by-elections here in Ottawa, Vanier, and in Niagara West Glanbrook, and I don't think they're going to. I think that people are very fed up, and I think enough has been enough.
Wow, big reset, and the politics gets hotter in Ontario. That heats up. Lisa MacLeod, PC M.P.P for Nepean Carleton. Lisa, always a pleasure to have you on the program.
Thanks very much. Take care.
You too. That's Lisa MacLeod. Coming up, we'll play you. Was it really a disaster for NBC when Matt Lauer interviewed both Trump